In the studio with me is our previous CAO and running for council, Tim Palmer. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Sean. Thank you very much for having me on air.
Oh no, Tim, thank you for coming in and sharing your exciting story. Now, Tim, let's start it off. Why did you decide to throw your name into the ring?
Thanks, Sean. A great question. By the way, I did do a short essay on my Facebook. People are welcome to take a look on that very question. Why am I running? I think much like most of the candidates, I was very concerned that there was a lack of people coming forward. We had Cody there at the beginning. Well, there was no one else that was definitive, that I was concerned of that there was going to be a good council. Second, I have a lot to contribute. I have a lot to contribute because of my knowledge. I'd like to mention in particular with the dropout of Aaron Orlando and Gary Starling, we're losing our experience on this new council. I feel even a higher burden to be on council to pick up that slack of knowledge and experience with what's going to be a new council.
So for those that may not know you or know that you were the CAO previous to Alan Chabot, what is your experience and where did you come from to land that position before you retired?
Thanks, Sean. I have an extremely varied background going from my early days in trades. I've worked in different industry in the private sector. I started off in local government in Whistler as a millwright. Was on the tools. Through various circumstances, moved up the ranks in different municipalities. I was in Trail running the wastewater plant there, ended up being the utilities supervisor. Moved on as director of engineer in Summerland. Decided to dabble into at the higher level of CAO, higher in the sense of the pyramid and the bureaucracy. And so I was in Burns Lake, and then I was very fortunate to land a position here in Revelstoke.
Now, during your time as CAO, what was one of the highlights and what was one of the lowlights that you can recall?
Oh, that's a good question. Good question, because that's not one that I really thought about. So the highlights, I still remember first coming to Revelstoke. It was in our big snow year. The snow budget was way over budget by January. And the snow just kept on coming, and the staff were concerned about keeping up to it. They were getting kind of tired of the volume of that in that year. I felt like I was on cloud nine. The beauty and the excitement of being in such a wonderful community, that highlight of just being here in Revelstoke, I would say that was the highlight, is being able to be part of Revelstoke. The low end, that probably leads to the sort of the parting when I eventually left the organization. But in a way, that's not a low period for me either. There was a growth period for me. You know, one of the things with that 4-year period with the previous council, they worked well and were good. I'm very appreciative of the whole council at that time. It would have been nice to have had more things. Rather, it was very administrative. We were so focused on keeping budgets in control. It was very administrative and less exciting as far as big projects.
Now, speaking of when you retired, it was met with some controversy and a bit of a strange situation, and it drew a little bit of media buzz at that time. So how are you with that now, and how do you feel about how that all went down?
At this point, I'm totally at peace with the whole thing. It was good for me in the end, in more than one way. It's the nature of politics. CAOs come and go throughout the province. We're going to see another round of that in the province in the next upcoming months. It's just inevitable. There's political changes, change of wind. So I grew from that. Now, one of the big things that we have with this new council coming in, and the experience that I had personally at that point, at that time it was, other than Linda Nixon, it was a whole brand new council. And so they're going to change, they're going to fix the world, everything's going to be wonderful, and then they're in office. We're at that risk again because we don't have any experience coming into this council. So other than Gary Souls as mayor, so he's had the one term as councillor, but we got a fresh lot of people. And one of my objectives is to make a really positive contribution so that we can get past those early stages. It takes a new council usually 2 years to just figure out the systems, figure out the bureaucracy. The learning curve is very steep.
While you may have not been on council, you have been working on the other side of things, so you understand it like the back of your hand, and now you're going to be potentially on that side of the table and you know how things go. So you know whether or not it's, come on, guys, you guys need to work better at this, or you know the wool is being pulled over your eyes. At least I would assume that you have a pretty good idea about how things roll back there.
Yeah, and I think staff is very, very aware of that they're not going to be able to pull the wool over my eyes, and I will call a spade as needed. I think that they know that I will be very, very supportive of staff in a progressive way, as long as they're meeting the objectives of council, following the policy. I'm going to be supportive of staff, but they're not going to be able to pull the wool over my eyes. I will be able to ask very pointed questions, but more importantly, I'll be able to help the new council navigate those, what might be red tape or blockades or problems. They say, how do we get through this? We want to fix this. How do we do this? Because quite often it's very common for a new council wants to change things and they just face a blockade and can't get past that.
Now, one of the words that will be tossed around for you is the word bureaucrat. And Dave Raven experienced that when he was the mayor. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it always seems to be dubbed bad. It sounds like it's something that doesn't have any excitement to it, or, you know, they always follow the dotted line and they're never willing to bend rules or whatever the case may be. But with that also is a deep understanding of how things are supposed to go about with due process. Now, you've got that.
Yes. So I have been a bureaucrat, and a bureaucrat is the one that is an unelected position implementing policy of council, ideally. Yes, bureaucrat can be a kind of a bad word, the bad innuendos behind that. Politician can be a bad word. Today, I'm a politician. I'm not a bureaucrat. It's politically correct to say I'm not a politician, but I am a politician by nature of running for office. I'll be a politician with an understanding of the bureaucracy.
Which could be a good thing when you're sitting on the other side of the table.
I'd like to think so.
Well, with a green council again, and it's through no fault, somewhere along the line there's been green councils in the past, and there very well could be them in the future. Do you think part and parcel of it is because of, this is going to come down to dollars, the pay, where the amount of money that councillors make, you couldn't possibly do it as your sole job, which means you have to have another one, and that takes away a huge amount of time from family. Then you're not going to see as many people that are, not always, but are slightly younger because they have family responsibilities and they're trying to build up, you know, enough money to one day retire and wear sneakers and yell at people on their front porch. That's my game plan, Tim, just FYI.
Right.
Do you think if you get in that you will be, by default, somewhat of the leader?
I'm going to be a team player, absolutely a team player. The decision making is a vote. So it's the majority, in most cases, it's the majority of the council that's there. So I'm just one voice. I am just one voice. And the mayor is just one voice. That's really, really important, because if it's me thinking that I'm going to change this or make this happen, it's not. As a team player, what I will bring is very pointed questions. I have strong opinions. My inside voice has been held back for years and years, and now I will be able to actually say what I think when at the council table. Before, I was muzzled.
Now that that is going to be an open box for you if you were to be elected, what are some of the major issues that you've overseen that you think need to be addressed right away?
The big issues, so if we look at things like DCCs, those kind of things, what that is engaging the public, making sure there's a meaningful way without overwhelming the public, so that we're getting that information. Communication back to the community is a big thing that needs to really get rectified, and that's communication from council. Staff have done a few things that are helping, but there really needs to be some better direction. With a brand new council, one of the things that always gets missed is the budget process. We should be well underway on the budget process. Yes, they have a 15-year financial plan. However, this new council needs to be educated very, very quickly. I will be pushing to get that done, because typically what will happen, it'll get right down to the wire. Staff will put the gun to council's head and say, you have to pass this. We need to be educated as to what the issues are and get moving on decision making on the budget. That's very, very important.
Several moons ago, there was a highway mall. It was a fun time, wasn't it? If you were to sit at that table, where would you have landed?
That's an interesting question for me, Sean, because I go back to the time of Steve Platt trying to do some other development, and I was very excited about some of that stuff. And I personally am disappointed. A much better scenario could have been there with some planning way back then. It didn't happen. And now that the mall controversy has come and gone, what we learned from this, and I think that's what's more important from that controversy, is what did we learn and how are we changing? What we know is this community cares about planning, cares about our future, cares about land use. We need to make sure that we're engaging well in advance. It's much the same question today with the Evans development. The community cares, and we need to listen to the businesses. We need to listen to the residents. We need to listen to the developers, and take all that in consideration and making sure that information is available. So really, I take that experience and say, okay, well, what did we learn? How can we be better in the communications and engaging? And I'll use a simple example. When we engage the public well, so for example, I believe that we engaged the public quite well with the marijuana issue. Good survey, there was good feedback that's coming back. It's almost a non-controversy. There's little things, but it's overall people know what's happening. That hasn't happened in some of those other things. So we definitely need to learn from the mall controversy, make sure we do the right things with things like Evans and other opportunities that will come in the coming years.
Do you think that we have a good understanding of who we would like to be in the next 5 years? Do you think that we've done a good job and that we have a clear, concise vision of what we want to see for ourselves?
Revelstoke, many years ago, was identified who we were as a community and what we wanted to be. And that's been more successful, I would suggest, than any other community in British Columbia. So there was a very good vision, and that has happened. That's why we're such a wonderful community. That question needs to come back. One of the things that Aaron Orlando was mentioning was on the OCP. It was one of his disappointments not getting that done. And I think that's something that we could definitely be focusing on. Reestablishing, hearing from the community, who are we going to be in the future? How are we evolving? How are we changing? Absolutely critical that comes from the whole population.
So Tim, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you have felt that is really important for the listener to know about you while you're running, or just overall something about you that really needs to shine that maybe otherwise hasn't?
One of my personal things, so just is on the environment and natural amenities. Revelstoke is a wonderful, wonderful place. We have our mountains, we have our backdrop, we have our parks. I want to protect that. I want that to see it enhanced. I'll throw a question out just for example. I was down to Begbie Falls yesterday, went for a walk down there. Should that be a park? Should that be a park? I'm not hearing that question. Well, the logging will happen, and we've seen that in the past, but we should be addressing those kind of questions in the future. Now, I'll be challenged and say that's outside our jurisdiction. It's outside our municipal boundaries, but those kind of things are very, very important for our community.
All right, so we have an idea of what you will be hoping to change in the next 4 years if you make a seat. Tim, thank you for coming in. And Tim, how can people ask questions or chat with you? How can they get a hold of you?
Tim Palmer for Revelstoke Council. Please come take a look at my page. I won't be super active on the chatter, but you can contact me directly by email through there. My phone number, I'll even put that on air, 250-814-8776. Feel free to give me a call if you wish. I look forward to this adding value to the whole election process.
Awesome. Well, we've been chatting with Tim Palmer. Tim, thank you for coming in to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.